She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Apologize to Ryan, or this marriage is over." Silence hit the house like a punch. The clock ticked, counting down my pride. The wine on the table was still warm, warmer than her eyes. I wasn't jealous. I was just the fool paying the bills while another man lived rent-free in my wife's heart. So yeah, I said I'd apologize, but not to save the marriage, to bury the lie. If you've ever kept quiet just to keep the peace, don't. Follow this story. You'll want to hear how that apology ends. I'm Noah, 43. I keep trucks moving off I-35 where the air smells like diesel and hot rubber. Days are pallets and manifests that don't care it's already 6 p.m. Nights used to be simple. Quiet street, backyard grill, 2 plates at the table, her laugh slipping down the hall. Austin heat humming through the screens. We weren't perfect, but we worked. Bills paid, birthdays remembered, coffee set for 6:30. Solid, if you didn't look too close. Lena works from the kitchen, headphones on, hair up, pencil tucked behind her ear. She loves the freedom. I love that she's happy. We split the load. Groceries, mortgage, trash on Thursdays, oil changes on Saturdays. Routine is a floor you trust to hold. Then a draft crept under the door. A name. Ryan. A friend from way back. Smart. Driven. Crushing it. Deals near the lake. New clients. Coffee that costs $10 because it comes with a story. I nodded along. People have friends. But the name kept circling back. Car rides, dishes, while her phone buzzed against the table like a small trapped animal. Ryan did this. Ryan said that. Ryan thinks. Ryan knows. A chorus you ignore until it's the only thing you hear. One night I set my fork down and noticed I hadn't heard my own name in 20 minutes. Just his, sitting with us like he owned a chair. Then she smiled and said, almost casual, "He just bought a place by the lake. You should hear about it." Ryan's condo near Lake Travis had floor-to-ceiling glass, sunsets like screensavers, a dock with lights that made the water look expensive. He talked about it the way some men talk about faith, steady, certain, blessed. "You should come out sometime," he said, smiling like he could buy my yes. Lena lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. She leaned in, asked about the view, the gym, the wine fridge. I mentioned my week, overtime, a driver short, a pallet gone missing in Laredo. The room cooled a degree. She nodded without looking at me. He kept going. Silence thickened between fork taps and a dog barking down the block. My steak turned to cardboard. Every bite felt like proof I could swallow anything. I stared at the wine and counted the hours I'd traded for that bottle. He looked at her like he'd already won and was just running out the clock. She finally spoke, soft, careful, the way you talk to a kid who keeps missing the answer. He understands me in a way you don't. Clean, precise. No blood, but it cut. I could have listed 1,000 small truths. Bills paid, late-night pharmacy runs, the quiet ways a man says I'm here. I didn't. I watched him bask. I watched her glow. And I felt the table tilt, like the floor under us had started to move. That night, the house went dark. The clock ticked. And at 2:13 a.m., his name lit our bedroom. Nights got louder in the quietest ways. A buzz on the counter, a glow across her face. Lena would tilt the screen away, thumb fast, mouth fixed. "Client," she'd say, sliding the phone face down like a lid on a pot. I told myself not to make a thing of it. People work late. Deadlines don't sleep. We lay back to back, the AC pushing tired air through the vents. She cleared her throat and brought him up like weather. Ryan was going through a lot. The divorce had shaken him. He needed friends who understood. I said, "Sure. I know how it feels to break." She exhaled like I'd passed a test. "We're just friends, Noah." I backed off. Pride can masquerade as patience. I counted the ways a man can be decent, give room, trust first, don't read over a shoulder. My own phone face down, my eyes on the ceiling fan. Her screen trembled again. A small pulse, then stillness. I told myself good men don't dig. I told myself I was still a husband, not a cop. She rolled over, sleep breathing, steady as a metronome. I closed my eyes and found the longest minute of my life. At 2:13 a.m., the room flashed. Her phone lit the sheets blue. One word on the lock screen was all it took to wake everything in me. Ryan. Saturday. I fired up the grill and tried to make normal. Smoke, spice, a cooler on the deck. Ryan showed with a six-pack you brag about, sunglasses, that easy grin people mistake for character. He clapped my shoulder like we were teammates. Man, this neighborhood is chill. He talked like always. Big deals, bigger plans, the condo view that kills at sunset. Then he drifted into numbers. A humble brag tour. Tough year, but, the right moves. He asked what I pulled at the company. Logistics is rough, bro. Ever think about getting out? I laughed it off, the way a man smiles when he's weighing whether to say something or swallow it whole. Pension's decent, I said. Keeps the lights on. Lena slid in beside him like he carried shade. She laughed at his jokes, filled the small gaps, defended him when I teased the coffee price or the glass railings by the lake. He's earned it, she said, quick, almost sharp. He works hard. I work hard, I said, but it came out quiet, like I'd set a tool down and couldn't remember why. The sun dropped. Bugs came out. He looked at me the way winners look at the scoreboard. Then he stepped closer, voice soft, friendly enough to hurt. He patted my shoulder twice and smiled. Be the bigger man. The house got quieter in ways you can measure. The mailbox fat with coupons I never asked for. A stack of glossy flyers for lawn service, solar panels, perfect teeth. I carried them in and dropped them on the counter like a growing drift of things that don't matter. 3 chairs around our table, one pushed back a little farther each week, like whoever sat there had somewhere better to be. Lena lived in headphones. Deadline, she'd say, touching the screen, sliding past me like steam off a kettle. I'd plate dinner, text her from 10 feet away, get the blue bubble. In a zone, eat without me. So I did. Fork to mouth, TV on low, the hum of the fridge a kind of company. I started noticing how the salt stayed where I left it. The pepper. My plate exactly where I set it the night before because I was the one who cleaned it and put it back. Proof I existed, arranged in small, obedient lines. The mail kept coming. The flyers thickened. The chair stayed empty. I learned the sound of a house that's still standing but already letting go. Baseboards ticking as the air shifts, pipes knocking. The long, slow exhale of a place that knows who sleeps here and who doesn't. One night I looked at the chair and felt something I couldn't name. Not anger, not even fear. Just a hole where my face used to be, reflected in her eyes. We met friends at a spot on South Lamar. Long tables, IPAs with names that try too hard. Ryan arrived late and loud, hugging the room like it was built for him. He slid into the seat across from Lena, and the two of them lit up, fast and bright, a current I could feel in my teeth. She laughed with her whole mouth, the way she used to laugh with me. He told a story about closing a deal before dessert. She clapped once, palm to palm, like a kid at a fireworks show. I made small talk with people who weren't listening. My hands went damp. I wiped them on my jeans and reached for a glass that wasn't mine. Mark, the guy from my shift, older by a year and wiser by 10, watched me miss the rim and set the glass down like it might break if I breathed wrong. He didn't say anything at first, just held my eyes long enough to tell me he understood the shape of this silence. Ryan pivoted to salary talk, casual as weather. You guys doing okay over there? He asked, chin at me. Lena jumped to answer. He's solid, she said. A pat on the head I didn't feel. I stared at the sweat running down my beer and thought about how water finds the lowest place and stays there. Mark leaned in, voice just for me, steady and small, the kind of truth men pass hand to hand when nobody else will. If she keeps comparing you to him, that's a trap. She called it emotional boundaries, like we were drawing tape on a floor I couldn't cross. We sat at the table that used to be ours, and she talked like a podcast, mindful, intentional, holding space. I need less negative energy, she said, like I was a weather system rolling in. I tried to listen without defending myself, tried to ask what that looked like in real life, where people pay bills and get tired and say the wrong thing on Tuesdays. She ticked boxes, her needs, her peace, her growth. Words stacked like furniture between us. I said I could give her space, but I still wanted a marriage, not a roommate agreement. She gave me a smile I've seen people give the slowest kid in class. "It's not about you," she said. "It's about protecting my energy." I said I'd stop asking who she was texting late. I said I'd stop teasing her about the lake talk and the coffee and the new gym. I said I'd try harder to make this house feel less heavy. I meant it. I would have carried anything to keep us standing. She leaned back, rubbed her temples, and finally said the line like it was a diagnosis. "Noah, you're suffocating me." The room went thin. I stared at our ceiling light like it might blink Morse code and tell me what to do. I nodded, pushed my chair in, and made myself small enough to fit inside her version of peace. The kitchen cabinet door sagged a little, one more thing that needed a hinge and patience. I pulled the toolbox from the pantry, laid the screws out like pills you take on time. Lena sat at the island with her laptop, thumbs moving, smile breaking at the corner like someone had told a joke only she could hear. "Who's that?" I asked, casual, the way you ask about the weather you've already felt on your skin. "Client?" she said. "A brand refresh, tight turnaround." She tilted the screen a shade, not enough to hide, just enough to remind. I bent to the hinge and let the screwdriver do my talking. She laughed then, a small burst, and caught herself with a hand over her mouth. "Sorry," she said. "He's ridiculous." He. The word hung there, light as dust, heavy as brick. I told myself not to reach for it. Don't be that guy. Don't turn your house into an interrogation room. I tightened the last screw and stood to test the swing. Smooth, clean, done. Her laptop pinged. An email banner floated up like a fish breaking the surface. Just a slice of text, a sender's name clipped by the corner of the screen. R. Pierce. I didn't say a thing. I watched the cabinet close the way it's supposed to. Snug, aligned, straight to the frame. And for the first time, I wondered what else in this house was hanging by one loose hinge I hadn't touched yet. Anniversary dinner, white tablecloth, low lights, the kind of place where waiters whisper and the steak comes with a story. I wore the shirt she likes. She wore distraction. Her phone lit up like a lighthouse every 30 seconds. I said, "Today is our day." She didn't look up. "He's in a crisis. I have to be there." There, meaning inside a screen with another man while I sat across from her in real life. I tried jokes. I tried memories. I tried the quiet that says I'm here. She nodded at all of them without hearing any. The server poured a Cabernet I can't pronounce. I watched the bottle empty and thought about hours, not grapes, how many I'd traded for this night, for this chair, for this chance to be chosen. The clock behind the bar kept perfect time. So did her thumbs. She smiled at something I didn't say. I cut the steak into even squares and chewed until the taste disappeared. Across the table, my wife was somewhere else, typing comfort to a man with a condo by the lake. The paradox was simple and cruel. I was alone on our anniversary, right in front of her. When the check came, I signed like a man paying rent in his own house. We drove home in a silence that belonged to strangers. She slept facing the wall. I lay there and stared at the ceiling until the dark began to move. The AC hissed like a tire losing air. I counted the beats between clicks, talked myself off cliffs in the dark. Am I just jealous? Am I tired? Am I turning into the guy who ruins a good thing because he can't stand the idea of being second? I scrolled through a corner of the internet men don't admit to, forums where 50-year-olds whisper about missing half their kids' lives, blogs about starting over with a folding chair and a coffee pot. The words felt like warning signs on a highway I was already on. I replayed the night in loops, her phone, the way our day bounced off glass, the bill sliding across linen like a verdict. Pride said, swallow it. Dignity said, stop bleeding where you stand. Somewhere around 3, the questions burned out and something colder took the wheel. I needed facts, not feelings, patterns, not poetry. I thought about the Tuesday lunches, the late-night buzzes, the way Ryan's name kept arriving like junk mail you can't unsubscribe from. Calendars don't lie. Statements don't forget. Phones keep better diaries than people do. So I made a decision in the same voice I use at work when a load goes sideways. Enough. Tomorrow, I'm checking the tracks, her calendar blocks, our card statements, the digital crumbs we all leave behind. If I'm wrong, I'll carry that. If I'm right, I'm done carrying this. Morning light hit the kitchen like it always does. Same countertop, same coffee, different man. I opened her calendar first. Tuesdays, noon to 2. Lunch. No client name, no location. Every week, repeating, neat as a lie that's been practiced. Then our credit card portal, Riverbend Cafe, every Tuesday, like clockwork. $58, 64, 72 with a dessert we never order. 2 years of Tuesdays lined up like fence posts. I scrolled slower. Gift receipts hid in the noise. Silk scarf from Nordstrom, a French bottle I can't pronounce. Flowers to a pharmaceutical office. Notes in the margins. For R. Sometimes just R. I did the math the way you do when it's your money and your future. Numbers turning to weight. 3 digits. 4. A grand. Then 2. The total landed ugly. Just under 7,000. Not vacations. Not emergencies. Not us. 7,000 pulled from the same account we call the house fund, the one named down payment, so we'd both remember what we were building. The screen went gray around the edges. I thought about the chair at our table, sitting empty on Tuesdays like it knew. I thought about the steak I chewed alone, the anniversary I signed for, my name on the bill, his on the flowers. I needed more than numbers. Numbers prove patterns. Messages prove intent. I opened iCloud and let it sink. The blue dots marched across the screen like they had somewhere to be. Her phone, my laptop, same cloud, same truth. I didn't go hunting. It landed in my lap with the politeness of a calendar invite. His name at the top, Ryan. The thread unspooled for years, nights, breaths I thought were hours. Late hours, long paragraphs. The soft language people save for lovers and saints. You make me feel alive, she wrote, 2:11 a.m. The kind of confession you don't send to just a friend. A heart emoji, red as a stoplight I somehow ran through every day without looking up. He answered in the shape of comfort. You always know what I need to hear. Then they traded memories from 10 years ago like antiques, polished and passed back and forth. I scrolled further. Tuesdays weren't just lunches, they were anchors. Can't wait to see you at noon. Same table? Photos I'd never seen, her laugh turned toward a lens that wasn't mine. Him in a reflection, his hand on the edge of her frame, not touching everything. Then the one that set the room on fire without making a sound. Her. Do you ever wonder what life would be like if we'd met first? The typing bubbles. Then his reply. More than I should. The mouse slipped out of my hand. The house didn't move, but the floor did. I waited until morning. Coffee, 2 mugs, the kind of quiet that makes a man choose his words like tools he might never get back. I told her I'd seen the lunches, the charges, the messages. I read the line out loud, "You make me feel alive," and asked her what exactly I'd been keeping alive in this house. She cried fast, practiced. You're jealous, Noah, pathologically jealous. The word landed like a diagnosis. She said she'd been finally feeling heard, that Ryan just listens without judging. I said I was judging the facts. She wiped her eyes hard enough to go red. You don't understand deep connection, she said, as if love was a language I'd refused to learn. I asked simple questions. Why Tuesdays? Why secrets? Why the heart emoji at 2 a.m? She flipped the board. I was controlling. I was reading into things. I was twisting her words, because men like you can't handle vulnerability. She listed all the ways I'd failed to be safe for her feelings, and none of the ways she'd walked out on mine. When I pushed back, when I said boundaries aren't abuse, she squared her jaw and handed me the label like a name tag at a bad conference. You're toxic, Noah. The room didn't shake. I did. Not because I believed her, because I knew what came next, the part where the guilty makes the honest apologize. I tried to build something reasonable out of the wreckage. I said we could set rules for the late-night messages. No phones after 10, no just checking in at 2 a.m., no weekly lunches without a heads up and a picture of the table that includes the world I pay for. She smiled like I'd asked her to clock in. That's control, she said. Healthy adults don't police each other. I said it wasn't policing. It was guardrails. Marriage doesn't run on hope. It runs on agreements. She tilted her head. Therapist calm. You should talk to someone, she said, about your insecurity, about why this triggers you. It's not normal to be this reactive. I thought about 7 grand in Tuesday receipts. I thought about, you make me feel alive. I thought about the way my name had been missing from our house like a picture taken off the wall. Reactive? I'd been a closed fist in my pocket for months. I kept my voice flat. I said I wasn't forbidding friendship. I was asking for respect. She tapped the table with one nail, a tiny metronome of patience running out. This is your problem, Noah, not mine. I won't shrink so you can feel big. There it was. The switch flipped, the blame rerouted. The affair became my flaw. The hole in the boat was now my seasickness. I went quiet, because anything I said was going to be used as proof. And in the silence, I understood. In this story, I'd just been cast as the reason she needed him. Mark called after shift and said, "Beer?" We sat under a tin awning while Austin Rain stitched the parking lot into dark squares. He let me talk until the words ran out. I told him about the messages, the lunches, the rich friend who never paid in silence. He wiped foam from his lip and said, "If she ever asks you to apologize to him, run." I shook my head. I'm not built to bolt. I was raised on fix it or carry it. Vows aren't umbrellas you close when it starts to pour. He looked at me the way older brothers do, tired, kind, honest enough to bruise. Just don't let pride make you stupid. I said pride wasn't the problem. Hope was. The rain softened, then came back harder. We finished our beers and watched a couple argue by their car, both of them pretending to be fine when everything about them said otherwise. Driving home, wipers clacked time while my brain tried to sort what a decent man does when decency is used against him. I rehearsed lines that sounded calm, boundaries that sounded fair. I told myself to stop pushing, to keep watching, to gather what's true and leave the rest to gravity. I pulled into our street with one decision that felt like a held breath finally released. I won't explode, not yet. I'll be still. I'll see. She came home late under a sky that wouldn't clear. Headlights washed the front room and moved on. The door opened, closed, opened again like she wasn't sure which life to step into. Brainstorm ran long, she said, shrugging off rain and perfume I didn't recognize, something citrus cut with money. I nodded, asked if she needed anything. She said she was wiped, kissed my cheek like a neighbor might, and disappeared down the hall with her phone. I stood in the kitchen with the hum of the fridge and the sound of tires hissing past, thinking about how people hide things in plain view. The garage door stuck a little. I should have lubed the track weeks ago. I hit the switch and stepped into the dark that smells like cardboard and old grass. Her SUV blinked once, twice. I tried the handle. Unlocked. On the back seat, a gift bag with tissue like a white flag, a ribbon I've never seen in our house, a card tucked half out. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. The shape of it said everything. Midnight shopping at a price point you justify with words like celebrate and earned. I closed the door softly and stood with my hand on cool metal, the way a man checks if the grill is still hot. The rain eased. My throat didn't. I told myself it could be for a client, a pitch, a thank you. The lie fit for exactly one breath. Then it slipped. And the box in her back seat felt like it had my name on the receipt and someone else's on the note. I took the picture fast. The bag, the ribbon, the corner of the card. Not to send. To remember the shape of a lie when it's still wearing perfume. Back inside, the summer quiet pressed on the windows like heat you can't push out. I opened the laptop, logged into our card, and started walking the trail I'd been pretending not to see. Riverbend, Tuesdays. Nordstrom, last spring. A wine shop that gift wraps their prices. Then the emails, receipts tucked into folders like tidy confessions. One subject line punched through my chest in 5 words. So proud of you. R. The message was short. Expensive. A scarf with a designer's name that might as well have been his. No secret code. No deniability. Just congratulations, shaped like intimacy. Paid for with money pulled from a future that had my fingerprints on it. I stared at the screen until the room thinned out. The AC kicked on, failed to cool anything. I took screenshots, dates, amounts, notes, cropped the fluff, saved everything to a folder I named by accident, Tuesday. Then another, gifts. I backed them up to a drive, then a cloud. My hands moved steady, the way they do when a trailer's loaded wrong and you fix it before anyone gets hurt. I didn't rage. I archived. Paper beat story. Patterns beat tears. When the last file finished, the progress bar went still. The house hummed. Somewhere a sprinkler hissed on. Summer carried on like nothing had happened. I had what I needed. I tried one more time because that's what men like me do. We circle back, we ask straight, we offer a way home. I told her I'd found the lunches, the gifts, the email with his pride stamped where mine used to be. I said I wasn't yelling, I wasn't leaving. I just wanted the truth, and the end of whatever this was. She didn't miss a beat. "Do you hear yourself?" she said, palms up like a referee. "You make Ryan feel small. You belittle him. It's cruel." I blinked. I thought about steak turned to cardboard and my name missing from our table. I asked how pointing at receipts belittled a man who wasn't my wife. She lifted her chin, found a higher ground to stand on. "You owe him an apology," she said, like a therapist delivering homework. "He's been there for me when you haven't. You've been cold, judgmental, reactive." Each word clicked into place like a lock turning. I felt the room narrow. "I'm asking for boundaries," I said. "No more 2 a.m. heart-to-hearts. No more Tuesdays like we don't exist. Pick us, or admit you didn't." Her eyes went flat, the kind of calm you get when you've already left and your body hasn't caught up. "Apologize to Ryan," she said, "or I'm done." There it was, the fake high ground, the last lever pulled. She made my dignity the problem and his feelings the prize. I looked at her, at the woman I'd built a life with, and understood. This wasn't a request. It was a test. And I already knew how tests like these end. I nodded. "Yeah, I'll do it." The words tasted like metal, but they went down clean. Lena let out a breath I hadn't heard in months, the kind you save for the finish line. "Thank you," she said, and her shoulders dropped like I'd finally learned the trick. She texted while I watched the ceiling fan carve the room into quiet slices. Saturday night. His place. She added a smile I hadn't earned. A pin dropped on my phone. Ryan's villa by the lake, a route that curved through money and glass. The house felt lighter for the first time in weeks, which told me exactly what my compliance was worth. I took a walk around the block and let the evening fold over the roofs. Sprinklers clicked. A dog worried a fence. Somewhere a family fought about dishes and then forgave each other before bed. Normal, ordinary mercy. I tried to remember the last time we practiced any. Back home, I stood at the sink and stared past my reflection. Apologize to Ryan. Make him whole. Make her proud. That was the assignment. I could pass it and lose everything that mattered, or fail it and keep my spine. "Saturday works," I said from the hallway. "I'll be ready." And I was, just not the way she expected. While she texted him confirmation, I opened my laptop, rolled my sleeves, and started planning an apology that would end the story we'd been telling, and start the truth. I laid it all out like a mechanic spreads parts on a mat. First, the timeline. I scrolled back through iMessage and pinned the nights that bled into mornings, the Tuesdays that doubled as confessions. Noon, Riverbend. 2 a.m., heart emojis. I dragged each piece into a doc until the pattern stopped pretending to be coincidence. Next, the money. Statements printed clean, charges circled, Riverbend totals marching down the page like a payroll he never had to meet. The Nordstrom scarf, the French wine, the florist receipt with a card that read, "So proud of you." I added the line that wasn't on any invoice, "Paid from the house fund." The math didn't argue. Photos followed. Her laugh turned toward a camera that wasn't mine. Window reflections with his shoulder just inside the frame. I printed them all on cheap paper because truth doesn't need gloss. Then I named the folders the way a man labels boxes he hopes never to open again. Tuesdays, gifts, midnights. I saved everything twice, cloud and drive, then again, because erasing is what guilty people do, and I wasn't giving anyone that option. The printer worked until the stack felt heavy in my hands, then fell silent like it knew. I slid the pages into a hard binder and pressed the rings closed. The click sounded final. I pictured the villa, the lake light, his smile, her relief. I pictured a table, 4 chairs, and the moment a lie runs out of places to sit. I stared at the binder on the table until the room stopped spinning. Then I pulled up a number I'd never used and hoped I was a decent man calling for the right reason. Sophie Pierce, Ryan's ex. I almost hung up before it rang. She answered on the third. This is Sophie. Calm voice. No ice, no sugar. It's Noah, I said. Lena's husband. A small silence. Not confusion, recognition. I told her there was a meeting Saturday at Ryan's place, that I'd been asked to apologize, that I had context. Another beat, like someone setting down a heavy cup. I figured, she said, not unkind. The kind of phrase you use when the shape of a thing finally matches the shadow you've been living under. I asked if she could be there, not to take sides, just to hear the same truth I was about to speak. She didn't press for proof, didn't ask me to explain the receipts or the messages. She just settled into a steadiness I wanted to borrow and said, "What time?" We picked an hour that would catch sunset on the glass. She wrote it down. I heard the scratch. There might be pushback, I said. She breathed out. There always is. I thanked her for hearing me. She paused, and in that pause I recognized someone who's had to learn not to shake. Then she said the only thing I didn't expect. Thank you for calling. I rehearsed because my voice needed to be a tool, not a fuse. I stood in the bathroom mirror, binder closed on the counter, and practiced the first sentence until it landed without shaking. Air in for 4, out for 6. Again. I pressed my tongue to my teeth to slow the rush. I pictured his living room the way he presents it online. Glass, lake, light meant to flatter. I pictured a TV mounted just high enough to look down on you. I didn't want anger. Anger is loud and easy to ignore. I wanted precision. I wrote the order on an index card. Tuesdays, totals, messages, then the line about meeting first. No detours, no history lessons. Evidence, then choice. I kept the card simple so my eyes wouldn't wander. I set up backups like I do at work when failure costs more than pride. Screenshots in a folder on my phone, a copy on a drive in my pocket, files in the cloud under a name boring enough to be invisible. AirPlay tested to a cheap TV in the spare room. Once it worked, I unplugged it and smiled. Glass rooms deserve big truths. I looked back at the mirror and set it clean, the way a man pays a bill he doesn't owe. I'll apologize. I let the smallest smile show, flat and final. My apology will be very clear. Saturday dripped gold over Lake Travis, the kind of light rich men think they can own. His place stood on the ridge, all glass and angles, every room already lit like it was waiting to be photographed. A bottle of red breathed on the counter, 2 glasses set out, jazz low, the kind of smooth that makes some people say classy and makes me think cover. I parked a house down and walked the last stretch so I could feel the ground under me. Not anger, not fear, just weight finding its heel. The door swung open on the second knock like we'd rehearsed it. Ryan in a fitted shirt that said he'd thought about this. Lena behind him, too bright, too polite, hands together like she was keeping them from shaking. "Come in," he said, with a smile that wanted to be mercy and landed closer to victory. The lake threw glitter through the windows. The room smelled like money and figs. My eyes did one slow circle, sofa, TV, the spot where the light would hit best, and came back to the table in the center, 4 chairs, 2 already chosen. He gestured to the wine. I ignored it. I put my binder on the wood with both palms, not heavy, just deliberate. The cover was plain. The truth never needs a label. "Thanks for having us," I said, calm enough to hear myself breathe. Then I sat down with my hands still on the spine, and for the first time in months, I felt ready. He took the seat across from me and leaned back like a man arriving at a finish line, that same polished grin. "Glad we can clear the air," he said, voice smooth as the jazz, eyes skimming me like I was a detail to file and forget. Lena slid into the chair beside him, and without thinking, she brushed his sleeve, quick, automatic, like muscle memory. Her face changed when she noticed she'd done it, a half-second too late to pretend. I sat alone on my side, the binder between my forearms, the wine glass placed just right in case I wanted to perform forgiveness. I didn't touch it. The first minutes moved like slow traffic. You hear it before you feel it, the hum, the waiting, the sense that someone needs to go first. He glanced at Lena, then at the red breathing in his hand. This doesn't have to be hard, he offered, generous from a throne he built out of my absences. I let the quiet widen until it bordered the edges of the room, let it stretch over the lake and settle on the glass. You learn a lot about people when you give them space to fill. Lena shifted, crossed a leg, smoothed a dress that didn't wrinkle. Her phone lit her purse and went dark again. I lifted my eyes from the table and met his. Nothing fancy, just steel finding steel. You first, I said, and let it hang. Then I tapped the binder once with a knuckle and added, or me? I'm sorry, I said. Lena's shoulders fell a notch, eyes softening like the storm had finally passed. Ryan eased back, one arm over the chair, a gentleman at peace with the ending he'd scripted. I kept my gaze steady, paced my breath the way you do when a heavy box is almost in the truck and you can't afford to slip. I let the silence travel the room, touch the glass, settle on the table between us. I'm sorry, I said again, slower now, for believing the best of two people who needed me blind. Ryan's smile twitched. Lena blinked, waiting for the part where I talk about insecurity and mistakes and learning to be supportive. I didn't give it to her. I looked at them the way men look at a gauge that's been lying, calm, final, certain. I'm sorry, I finished, each word clean, for trusting you both this long. The jazz seemed to fall through a trap door. You could feel the air change even if nothing moved. Ryan lifted his glass, paused halfway to his mouth. Lena's hand found her purse. My binder sat between my elbows like a quiet verdict. That was the apology she demanded. That was the only version I had left. I wasn't here to be forgiven. I was here to bury a lie. And I hadn't even opened the first page. I slid my phone from my pocket and woke the screen. The TV caught the signal like it had been waiting for it. One tap, and the room filled with the folder name I'd been living inside. Tuesdays. A photo burst across the glass. Lena laughing at a small table I'd never seen, sunlight laying stripes across her arms. Another, same angle, different week. A reflection on the window where Ryan's shoulder hovered at the edge of her frame like a shadow with good taste. Then the messages, blown up larger than truth needs to be. 2:17 a.m. Her words, you make me feel alive. A red heart, unmissable. His reply, you always know what I need to hear. The receipts marched in next. Riverbend totals stacked like pay stubs I never got. Nordstrom, silk, size noted. The wine with a French name that costs a Saturday. Florist email with a card. So proud of you, R. The TV didn't judge. It just told the same story every way it could. Lena didn't cry. She didn't even reach for a defense. She froze. The kind of still that says the performance hasn't loaded. Her mouth opened, then closed, then forgot what innocence sounds like. Ryan shifted, searching for a line that would make it smaller. None of them fit. I didn't narrate. I didn't moralize. I let the screen do what truth does when it's finally allowed out. Fill the room until there's nowhere left to sit. Ryan found his voice first, fast and too smooth. This is out of context, he said, as if the word could shrink a room. Screenshots don't tell the whole. His wrist buzzed. A chime popped in the quiet like a bead of glass. He glanced down, quick, trained to look without looking. But I saw it. We all did. His Apple Watch flashed a text preview he couldn't swipe away in time. Lena, delete the folder PLS. No punctuation, no defense, just an instruction you send when truth gets bigger than your mouth. The TV held their Tuesday life in perfect focus. The lake caught our silence and kept it. Ryan started another sentence that died halfway between clever and useful. You're taking context, I finished for him and let the corner of my mouth lift. Looks like it just showed up. He folded his arms to hide the watch. Lena's eyes dropped to the purse that had been lighting up all night like a guilty lantern. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The room had already picked a side, and it wasn't theirs. You could feel it in the air, the way sound stops bouncing when a lie runs out of walls. I let the message hang where it landed, bright and undeniable. Then I slid the binder closer, thumbed a tab, and turned to the page that speaks a language nobody mishears. Numbers. I opened the binder to a page that didn't care about feelings. Riverbend Cafe, 2 columns, dates and totals. Tuesday lunch, repeating like a drumbeat only they dance to. 58, 64, 72, week after week, month after month, 2 straight years. I didn't read the charges. I let them stack until even the air got heavy. I flipped to the roll-ups, neat as a payroll. House fund, I said. Down payment. I tapped the sum with a knuckle. Just under 7,000. He stared at the ink like it might blink. I kept going. Nordstrom, silk scarf with a name that costs extra. The wine shop, vintage you brag about more than you drink. The florist email, card reading, so proud of you, R. Screenshots of confirmations with the account name in the corner, the one we picked together to remind us what we were building. I didn't look at Lena when I said it. I looked at him, because men understand the shape of this kind of theft. You poured my wife's future into your lunches. You poured my hours into your gifts. You siphoned the house we were saving for into a relationship you kept just shy of honest. I shut the binder like a book that failed its reader. The TV kept the proof alive behind me. Red hearts, midnight promises, sunlight on a table I never sat at. You didn't just cross a line, I said. You financed it. He blinked. She breathed. And the only thing left moving was the total. Lena found her footing in jargon. Boundaries, she said, hands open like holy text. I'm practicing self-love. I won't apologize for protecting my peace. She stacked the words between us like furniture. Prioritize my nervous system. Hold space. Regulate. And you need to stop making everything about control. Ryan slid in with that coachy tone he likes. Be the bigger man, Noah. Let it go. Don't turn love into a ledger. I stared at the TV, heart emojis, 2 a.m. confessions, Tuesday totals, then back at them. You want boundaries? I said. Here's one. Marriage first. Marriage. Not second to a man who signs cards with an initial. She rolled her eyes, called me reactive, said I needed to do my work. He nodded like a therapist with a boat payment. I felt something settle that hadn't been steady in months. Ron Joy, boundaries, aren't a knife you use to stab your husband and call it healing. The room went small. You don't regulate by hiding lies. You don't hold space for a man who parks in my life like it's free. Ryan tried the soft power move again. Come on, man. Choose grace. I cut him off. Grace isn't paying for your lunches and calling it growth. I tapped the binder. This isn't control. This is clarity. The word hung there, heavier than the wine he poured for himself. The lake went quiet behind the glass, like it was listening for something honest. The door opened without a flourish, just a click that turned every head. Sophie stepped in with her hair pinned back and the look of someone who's been through a fire and learned the choreography of smoke. The air shifted. She closed the door gently, set a thick envelope on the table, and met Ryan's eyes like she'd already forgiven everything except the lie. Evening, she said. No drama, just gravity. Ryan straightened, smile thinned. Lena pulled her hands into her lap like she'd found the wrong room. Sophie nodded to me, then tapped the envelope once. You left a trail, she told Ryan. You always do. He started that old engine, misunderstanding, context, the mess of divorce, until she slid a page free and turned it toward him. Company letterhead, expense report. Vendor, Nordstrom. Reason, client appreciation. Signature, his. Another, wine. Another, florist. Same signature. These are corporate funds, she said, voice low. Gifts labeled as business. We both know who received them. Color left his face, slow as a tide. Sophie, he tried, but she wasn't here to spar. She was here to end the echo. You've always been generous with what isn't yours, she added, and looked at me like the room finally had 2 adults in it. Lena stared at the paperwork like it might learn a new trick. Ryan's watch buzzed and stayed unanswered. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The envelope did the talking. Company money for personal gifts, Sophie said, steady. Signed by you. Color crept up Ryan's neck, the kind of red you get when the armor slips. Lena's face crumpled, tears fast and bright, too quick for grief, just quick enough for being seen. I stayed quiet. The TV muttered its evidence in still frames. Somewhere, a wall clock ticked like it was measuring the room's oxygen. Sophie drew one long breath and let it out slow, a metronome for courage. I didn't lecture. Lectures give people room to dance. I tightened the questions until there was nowhere to move. "Are those your messages?" I asked Lena. "Yes or no?" She stared at the table. "Yes." "Tuesdays at Riverbend every week?" "Yes." "Gifts paid from our account?" Her mouth shook. "Yes." Ryan tried to jump in about context. I held up one finger and he swallowed it. "Is this an emotional affair?" I asked. She flinched at the word like it had teeth. "Yes." The clock kept time. The jazz was gone. Even the lake seemed to wait. I leaned forward, elbows on the wood I didn't buy, and gave her one last place to stand. "How long, Lena?" Her hand found the purse like it might have an answer. It didn't. I kept my voice flat, the way you talk to a breaker switch. No stories, no therapy words, just the truth. "How long?" She glanced at Ryan, then at Sophie, then at me, the man who paid for the room she'd already left. And I watched the part of her that still knew right from wrong begin to move its lips. It came out small, like a secret that had learned to whisper. 3 years, she swallowed. But it wasn't physical. The word clattered on the table and lay there useless, like a key that fits nothing. Ryan moved, a half-inch of rescue, his hand drifting toward hers. Sophie slid her chair back just enough for the sound to cut that gesture in half. No fight, no drama, just a line drawn with wood on tile. He froze. I didn't gloat. Truth doesn't need a victory dance. I nodded once, like a man checking torque. "Thank you," I said, for finally being honest. The thank you wasn't mercy, it was a receipt. She wrapped her arms around herself, smaller now than the light had promised, and I saw the shape of every Tuesday she'd left me sitting with an empty chair and a bill. He started up again. Definitions, modern friendships, grown adults. I let him talk to the windows. Not physical is what people say when they want a discount on the damage. I pointed at the screen where 2:17 a.m. glowed like a siren. "This is intimacy, Lena. You just outsourced it." She looked at the photos like they'd been shot on another planet. Maybe they had. Affairs live in a weather system that doesn't match the zip code on your mail. I closed the binder to stop the paper from shaking. 3 years, I repeated, setting the number where none of us could step around it. Then I straightened, because a confession changes the temperature, and the next part had to happen in air that wasn't lying. Ryan reached for the remote like a man who thinks silence is a solve. "Let's shut this down," he said. "We don't need all this." His hand hovered near the TV settings, then drifted toward the coffee table where my binder lay. The old instincts kicked: charm, control, erase. "Noah, let's delete the files. Start fresh. This is unhealthy for everyone." I didn't move. "There are backups," I said, even. "Cloud, drive, printed, time-stamped." I let the next piece land where it would do the most work. "My lawyer has a copy, and Sophie has the email thread." Lena went still, the kind of still that happens when a plan runs out of exits. Ryan's jaw worked. No words, just teeth finding each other and losing. He tried the wrist flick to his watch. It stayed dark, loyal to nothing. Sophie rested a palm on the envelope and nodded once, like a witness swearing in. "This isn't a conversation you can hide from," I added. "It's a record." He aimed for indignation and came up with air. "You can't—" "I already did," I said. "You told your story in receipts. I'm just keeping the minutes." The TV hummed. The lake held its breath. In the middle of a room built for appearances, the truth did what it always does when you stop negotiating with it. It locked the doors, it sat down, and it waited for the next honest move. I slid the binder a few inches forward until it touched his glass. Papers inside it settled like a verdict. "You wanted an apology," I said, voice steady enough to sign a check. "Here it is." No flourish, no sermon, just the words a man uses when he's finished being useful to a lie. Lena's face collapsed inward. Ryan searched the room for friendly furniture and found none. Sophie didn't blink. I stood. The chair legs said goodbye to the floor. My hand found the doorknob the way a habit finds daylight. "I'm not here to scream," I said. "I'm not here to beg." I glanced at the TV, Hearts, Tuesdays, Bills, and back at the table where my marriage had been spending itself. "I'm here to stop paying for this." I opened the door and let the night air cut through the room's perfume. No drama, just oxygen. I looked once at Lena, the woman I'd kept choosing while she practiced leaving. Whatever apology she needed from me had been spoken in full. Whatever apology she owed herself would take longer. "My lawyer will take it from here." The line landed and stayed. I walked out with my pockets lighter and my spine heavier. Behind me, the jazz kept pretending it knew what grace sounded like. The latch clicked. The house across the water lit up one by one, ordinary lives doing ordinary mercy. And for the first time in a long time, I could hear my own name. I stepped out and the night met me clean. Behind me, the house swallowed itself. Muffled voices, a choke of breath, questions that stepped on each other and went nowhere. A sob cut short. A sentence started twice. Then the jazz hiccuped and fell under the weight of real life. I pulled the door until the latch caught and the sound came through like radio from a car on another road. Distant, broken, not mine. The air was cooler than it had any right to be. Lake breeze, cut grass, that faint mineral smell Austin gets after a hot day finally gives up. Streetlights made cones on empty pavement. A dog barked 2 streets over and gave up too. I stood there a second to see if anything in me would try to run back in. Nothing moved. The gravity had shifted. I walked to my truck without looking through their windows. Freedom isn't fireworks. It's the quiet, after you stop arguing with math. Hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, I listened to my own breath and let the leftovers of the room burn off like fog from a windshield. As I pulled away, the villa shrank to a warm square on a dark hill. A stage without an audience. A lie still trying to perform with the lights cut. I turned onto the main road, and when the last glimpse of glass slid behind the trees, something inside me finally slid into place. The door was closed. I was out. Home was the same set of rooms with a different temperature. I tossed my keys in the bowl, didn't turn on the big light. My phone started its drumbeat. 1 message, then 3, then a flood. Her name filled the screen like weather you've already driven through. "We need to talk. You misunderstood. Can we reset? You're being extreme." I thumbed the side button and let the phone go black. The silence that followed had bones. Mark's voice showed up in the quiet, plain, and useful. "Don't let pride make you stupid." He was right. This wasn't pride. This was maintenance. I opened the laptop and the glow lit the kitchen like early morning. The folder I'd built didn't blink. I searched an attorney a friend had mentioned once, clicked the form that looks like every other form until it doesn't, and started typing my name into spaces that felt heavier than paper. No essays, no speeches. Boxes, dates, attachments. Facts where feelings used to live. When it asked for a signature, I read the line twice, breathed once, and signed with the same calm I used to release a trailer hitch. Click. A thin chime. The confirmation page didn't celebrate. It just existed. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the dark. The fridge hummed, the AC exhaled. My phone lit the counter again and didn't matter. Whatever came next would have lawyers and daylight. Tonight was for one clean truth. I had stopped paying for someone else's story. Morning came with that dull gray that makes coffee feel heavier. She was at the table before I was, eyes swollen, a tissue folded into a neat square. "We can fix this," she said, voice soft like it used to be when we were broke and kind. "Couples therapy. A reset. Please." The phone lay between us like a prop that had finally learned shame. I poured coffee, let the steam fog the space where her promises lived. "I've done enough therapy," I said. "By myself." Her mouth tightened. She reached for words that had worked before: growth, repair, communication, but they sounded like a manual for a machine we no longer owned. I told her the papers were filed. Not vindictive. Administrative. The kind of maintenance you do when the roof leaks every time it rains and calling it weather stops being cute. She started listing reasons this was a phase. I opened the drawer and took out the key I'd found in her purse months ago. Small, ordinary, with a rubber cap the color of expensive branding. I set it on the table where a family's mail should go. The sound it made was light and final. "Give it back to him," I said. Her eyes snapped to it like it barked. I slid my mug aside, wiped a ring of coffee from the wood, and stood. "I don't need access to that house anymore," I added. "And neither do you." The key sat there, dumb and perfect, a boundary shaped in metal. A few months later, I started ordering the same thing every Wednesday at Bluebird Roasters. Hot black, no room. The barista quit asking. Sophie showed up one afternoon, hair down, sleeves rolled, the steadiness I'd borrowed now worn like a jacket that finally fit. We took a corner table and let the noise of the place do the talking for a while. Milk steaming, cups stacking, a saxophone on the speakers that didn't try too hard. We traded the small inventory of our new lives. Her school year, my shift change, the quiet habits you learn after you stop walking on eggshells. She asked if I missed the old house. I said I missed how I thought in it. She nodded like she knew the blueprint. We talked about the strange ache men don't post, the empty Sunday, the first grocery run with one cart and no list, the way silence can be a bully or a friend depending on the day. I told her I wasn't angry anymore. Not at anyone, just done. She stirred her coffee and watched the swirl settle. "People mistake attention for love," she said finally. "They chase the buzz and call it connection." I looked at the ring of heat on her cup and felt something unclench. "I didn't need fireworks," I said. "Just light." She smiled, small and real. "You didn't want worship," she said. "You wanted the truth." And for the first time in a long time, the room felt big enough for both. Austin wears the sun like a badge. Late afternoon, the sidewalks shine, and even the stoplights look kinder. I stood outside Bluebird with a to-go cup, warming my hand, and thought about everything I'd paid for that wasn't mine. Then I set it down and let the heat leave. Don't make a man apologize for seeing the truth. That's the line I'd hand my younger self if I could. Not because truth is pretty, it isn't. It's a blade that cuts you free and leaves a mark you learn to live with. You stop mistaking noise for music. You stop renting out your spine. I took the long way to the truck, past a hardware store and a church bulletin that promised grace at 7. I don't need fireworks. I need light. The small kind that finds the floor you stand on and tells you it's still there. I breathed in, the way you do when the storm's gone and the nails held. Then I said it out loud, for no one and for me. I apologized for staying silent too long. The road home was just a road. Houses with ordinary mercy, a sky with room in it. Tomorrow is bills and work and whatever comes next. That's enough. If any of this hit where you live, don't swallow it. Tell your story. Hit follow. Share this with the man who needs to hear it. I'll keep talking. You keep walking. We're not done.